I will talk about the Spark.
Hello everyone, my name is Vimal and I work in the big data platform teams at Huawei. And for the past 6 to 8 months, I've been working on using Spark to develop a unified big data analysis engine for telecom products. And I actually get to interact a lot with different product teams of Huawei and get to know a lot of interesting use cases in big data. And for this presentation, I have collected some of these interesting use cases. So let's go through them. So Huawei is primarily a telecommunications company, and Huawei is also into consumer devices and enterprise business. And by consumer devices, I mean Huawei is one of the top smartphone vendors in the world, and we are also launching a commercial cloud services. And in this presentation, I'll be focusing mostly on the network related use cases, and that's because Huawei is mainly focused into networking business. And in a telecom network, there are a lot of devices from the trans-receiving stations, which are your towers, to the routers, switches, payment systems, billing gateways, and so many devices which constantly generate a huge amount of data. And by collecting, storing, and analyzing those data, we can generate a lot of insights, which actually could be used to improve a lot of things in the telecom network, such as improve the network efficiency, help to improve the customer care process by resolving the customer complaints very quickly. And we can also use it for market analysis, such as real-time marketing campaigns, and to do the impact analysis of a certain marketing campaign. And we can also use it for data monetization. It's a very interesting use case wherein we try to generate additional revenue sources for the operators by utilizing the data which is already there in the network. So we'll see those use cases in the coming slides. And when it comes to network optimization, the main thing is the signal quality and coverage. And for this, the first thing that network operators do is something called GSM frequency optimization, which is the process of tuning the certain parameters of the base trans-receiving stations. These are your cell phone towers. By tuning these parameters, you can greatly vary the signal quality and coverage. But the problem is it's not easy to find the right parameters because it depends on a variety of factors such as the topology of the area, the density of buildings in the area, and many other things. So what is done is we need to constantly measure this signal quality and coverage, which is also not straightforward. We need to monitor a lot of KPIs such as paging success rate, call drop rate. There are certain number of KPIs which are constantly monitored to quantitatively find out what is the signal quality and coverage of a certain tower. And these parameters, certain soft parameters and hard parameters of the tower are tuned regularly. And so we need to constantly collect a lot of data. So the data is collected whenever you make a phone call or whenever your cell phone switches from one tower to another, and any control event happens in the network. And typically, the data volume ranges to around 1 terabyte of data per day for one network deployment. So we monitor around 20 different KPIs and 50 different dimensions, such as the location, the tower name, and so on. And the data comes to around 12 billion records. And other use cases of big data in network optimization is UTMS pilot pollution analysis. So what happens is if you have more number of towers giving an equal quality of coverage in a certain area, your cell phone is not able to stick to one tower. Instead, it keeps hopping the towers, which leads to a problem called ping pong problem. And because of this, what happens is sometimes you get dropped calls, and sometimes you don't connect to any of the towers. So it results to in bad experience of quality. And for this also, we collect a lot of data such as call drop rates and the tower registration information, and we do some analysis to see within this particular duration of time whether any cell phone switched so many towers. And the other use case is the signal coverage problem, but I'll skip this because of lack of time. And the picture here you see is the typical data flow of a network optimization system. The data is collected from a variety of sources such as configuration data, the engineering parameters, internal logging data, and all this data is correlated and analyzed in the big data system, which can be MapReduce jobs or Spark jobs. And some examples of analysis is pilot pollution analysis, neighboring cell analysis. These are all telecom specific algorithms, and the output of this analysis is consumed by a variety of means. An example of those means is most telecom operators have a big dashboard on which you can see the entire network, and you can see what events are happening in the network, and it will automatically alert if there's something on which some action needs to be taken. And the site engineers also get real-time alerts if they need to take any action. And in customer care, the main goal is to improve the customer satisfaction, which can be achieved by quickly solving the problem. For example, if some customers complain that they are experiencing a lot of call drops in a certain area, then it's important that we find out exactly which devices or which events caused the call to be dropped. The call can be dropped because of the destination network also, but sometimes the call can be dropped because of the problem in the billing systems, some bugs in the routers, or network congestion. So what we do is, when a call drop complaint comes, we need to extract the data from all the devices from this end to that end, which are involved in that call for exactly that time duration of the call, and then we need to correlate all those information. This is one of the big use cases of using big data in telecom. And other interesting use cases apart from the telecom domain is in terminal business. As you all know, Huawei is one of the top smartphone vendors in the world. And with Huawei smartphones, we ship our own app store. And in app store, to maintain a healthy ecosystem, it's very important that you get good quality developers to publish apps on your store, and at the same time ensure that they get considerable amount of downloads. So you need to promote the right kind of apps to the right kind of people. For example, if a person is interested in sports, it's important that you recommend the right kind of sports app to those people. So you need to find out what users are interested in and promote the right kind of app. So the publishers of the app are happy because they get more downloads and probably more in-app purchases. And the users are happy because they get to use good quality apps. And another interesting use case is battery usage optimization. Actually, the biggest problem which all smartphone vendors face is their customers complaining that the battery doesn't last long. My battery doesn't last even a day, like that. So most of the times, the problem is not in the device or the battery. The problem is because of some apps which consume more battery than what they are supposed to. And we collect the battery usage information of different apps from each of the devices and analyze it in our cloud. And here the tricky thing is, sometimes an app uses more battery because actually the user is using the app for a long time. For example, if I use Facebook for 5 hours, it will consume more battery. So we should not flag it. So, and sometimes if I run a download manager, it will consume more battery. I should not flag it. So we try to correlate and apply some intelligence to find out which apps are actually using some more battery. Sometimes what happens is certain apps use more battery on only certain type of devices because of some OS bug or some other thing. So before the user downloads the app in the App Store, we try to give him some information that this app can consume more battery, so he can decide whether to install that app. And this is the data monetization use case, which I felt very interesting. Actually, it's like telecom operators get a lot of huge amount of data, and they know a lot of things, like in which area and during which time there are more people, and from which direction to which direction people travel during the morning hours, and in evening hours in which direction they travel. And this information is collected in a very anonymous way, so there is no user information in it. But we can use this information to monetize this information. For example, we can suggest some retail companies on the locations where they can put up new stores, or we can help advertising companies decide which is the good location to put the new advertisement board, wherein during this time of the day there will be more people, so the advertisement gets more exposure. And this is the Huawei's big data platform. So it's very similar to a typical big data platform. So we have HDFS at the bottom, which is a distributed file system. I guess all of you are familiar with HDFS, right? Yeah, it's actually a distributed file system which splits your file into multiple blocks and stores one or more copies of these blocks in various nodes. And on top of that, we have Yarn. Yarn is a resource manager for big data systems. What it does is it actually divides your computing resources into many virtual units and allocates those units to your computing tasks based on the demand. Your computing tasks can be in Spark or MapReduce. And on top of Spark, we have the traditional Spark SQL, machine learning, graph, and stream. And on top of MapReduce, we have Hive, Pig, and Mahout. These together form our data processing platform. And on top of the data processing platform, we have our data analysis platform. Inside that, we have domain-specific algorithms and telco-specific models, which are very specific to Huawei's business. And in the data processing platform, in each of the components, we have done a lot of enhancements targeted at improving the performance, improving the stability and security. And many of these enhancements we have contributed back to the community, to the open source projects. Yeah. Actually, it varies from deployment to deployment. So some deployments have PB level data in a year. Petabytes of data in 1 year is the max which I have seen. Maybe around 12 petabytes. No, it's not on SSDs. Yeah, because we use Huawei's own proprietary hardware called ATCA boards, which are telecom specification boards. And as of now, they are not SSDs. Maybe there are SSD based in progress, which I'm not aware of. And Huawei SEQ Analyst is an example of a system that uses Huawei's big data platform. And it's basically a business quality monitoring and management system for targeted at telecom operators, which covers end-to-end business from network operations, customer care to marketing and sales. Actually, I'll not go in deep into this. Okay, this is the Huawei's SEQ architecture, which actually contains all of your components such as real-time processing, batch processing, and you have the telecom applications running on it. And in Huawei's SEQ, we use Spark for a lot of things, mainly to run specialized algorithms. And these algorithms are focused on churn prediction, subscriber grouping, discovering potential customers, and discovering some fraud behavior. And we choose Spark for these purposes because it's 100 times faster than Hadoop, at least in these scenarios. And you get many things combined, such as SQL capability, streaming capability, and analytics capability combined together. And developers can write applications quickly in Java, Scala, or Python. And coming to the most interesting part, and this is the part I've been working on for the past 6 to 8 months, we are trying to develop a unified data analysis platform using Spark. And the goal is to have less moving parts in your big data system, because in a traditional Hadoop-based system, you have Hive for query, then you have Mahout for machine learning. But in Spark, you get everything in one package. And so in a big data system, generally what you do is you collect and store data, which is a ETL. Then you pre-process the stored data, which is also ETL. Then you apply some algorithms on the data, which can be machine learning algorithms or any computation, which is a MapReduce, which can be done in Spark DAG. And finally, what you do is you query the data out. And most users are more familiar in using SQL for queries, and that is provided by Spark SQL. So for all the use cases of big data, Spark actually provides some solution. So we try to use Spark to build a unified big data analysis platform. And here I'm showing an example of using Spark to do our ETL. So ETL is nothing but you load the data into RDD, then apply some transformation, create another RDD, again apply some transformation. So once you chain a lot of transformation, it becomes like an ETL pipeline, and finally you persist the RDD. And traditionally, what we have seen is in a telecom scenario, you have many developers working on different scenarios, and different developers work on different source files. For example, one person may be working on base station data, another person may be working on billing system data, and someone will be working on both the data together. And what happens is when they write the data pipelines, they do a lot of repetitive processing. For example, if I'm processing the base station data, and another person is also processing base station data for different use cases, but some of the processing which both of us are doing are same. Maybe there are small differences at the top layers, but the initial part of the processing is same. But since we write two different pipelines, we do the same job again, which wastes the computing resources, which wastes our development time, which makes the maintenance more difficult. By using Spark, what we have done is we are trying to build a visual interface for designing the data pipelines. And so developers can see what's the current flow, and then they can plug in or branch from an existing flow. So when the branch from an existing flow, that particular RDD gets cached. So when any of the flows runs, that RDD is cached, and when the second flow runs, it resumes only from that RDD and doesn't compute the previous RDDs. And we are also using machine learning for a variety of purposes. And in this example, we used machine learning to reduce the churn for one leading mobile carrier. And we used a random forest algorithm, and we've seen a good results in predicting which user are probably going to leave your network. And we can suggest some actions which can help reduce the churn. And this another interesting module which I've been working on, which is to build a unified query engine using Spark. So the main problem in big data systems is you have data stored in different components. Some data is stored in HBase, some data is stored in Hive, some data is in Parquet, some legacy data is in MySQL or Oracle. And now your analytics tool cannot query all of these together because it has to connect separately to each of these tools. Or you have to write ETL to migrate data from all these tools to one source, and then you can process it. But through Spark's data source API, what capability we get is we can integrate all these sources into Spark. So you can just query Spark, and Spark will read from all these sources, do the join, do the correlation, etc. And what we have done is we have implemented support for additional data sources, and we have implemented some enhancement so that these additional data sources perform more faster. And we have implemented something called unified metadata. So all these data sources are registered as table in Spark. And we have implemented use writes control. For example, if you have data in CSV files and you're using Spark, there is no write control on that. Anybody can query and see all the data. Now, if you want to implement, if you want to restrict certain people from accessing certain columns, or certain people from accessing certain tables, or even controlling row level access, those features are provided. For example, if I'm not authorized to see data regarding India, for example, when I make a query, select star, the select star query is automatically translated and a filter is added where country not equal to India, and the query is pushed down. So when the underlying engine returns the data doesn't contain rows which I'm not supposed to access. And while working on these features, we have done a lot of contributions to Spark, which we have given back to the community. Some examples are we have done some performance optimizations, such as we've speeded up the join performance by 100 times by implementing the hash join in SQL. And we've done some pushdown optimizations, such as pushdown project when the child is sort, and combine the limit and sort to avoid total ordering. And we've also contributed some enhancements to the Spark SQL syntax. And Spark on HBase, actually Jackie has covered. So what we have done is we've implemented a native HBase connection into Spark using the data sources API. So you can use SQL query to SQL statements to query HBase data. And almost all the things are pushed down, so the IO is reduced. And we have also done some contribution in Spark R, and we also implemented a lot of additional machine learning algorithms in mlib. And actually, I'd like to conclude my presentation by reiterating some of the benefits which we got by using Spark. Spark is 100 times faster than Hadoop in memory. So what benefit we get is you need less hardware for the same task. By reducing the hardware, you reduce the hardware cost, you reduce the real estate space which is required for the hardware, and you reduce the amount of energy which is required for the hardware, which results in a huge cost saving for the operators. And Spark is very easy to use. You have APIs in Scala, Java, and Python, and you can write more applications more quickly. So what we achieve is we are able to develop features more faster. So our time to production has reduced, which results in more profits for Huawei, and the telco operators are happy, customers are happy, because some of these features are targeted at improving the customer service processes. And Spark is flexible because it comes with Spark SQL, machine learning, streaming, everything together. So we are able to integrate all these capabilities and develop more advanced features, such as the churn prediction feature and all, and which results in more revenue to the operators and better customer satisfaction also. So with that, I'd like to end my presentation. If you have any queries, feel free to ask. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you do a query for these different data sources, do you do a query job in Spark? Do you bring the data from different data sources into the Spark memory, or you do a query job adding them?
Yeah, actually, the key thing here is we don't bring the data into Spark, because if you bring the data into Spark, it's no different from the existing feature, current data sources which Spark provides. What we do is we push down almost whatever is possible to the underlying data source. For example, if you say select column A, column B with some filters, the filter and the column pruning is applied and only the pruned data is moved to Spark. And sometimes what happens is if you have data in Hive and say cube and you're executing a join, and if we do some optimization, like we see which table is smaller, if the one of the table is very small, we read it and pass the data as filter to the other table. So again, we can reduce the amount of data which is transferred to the Spark layer.
So you can join the data in different data sources.
Yeah, we can join the data in different data sources. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I missed that, but what is the hardware that you use for that?
Which particular task?
When you were looking at the devices and you were looking at the towers.
Yeah.
So what's the hardware? How many nodes?
Okay. Actually, it varies. I'm not exactly sure of the number of nodes, but the deployments I've seen, we use devices called ATCA. They are racks with some blades kind of processing devices. Each blade contains around 16 cores and approximately 128 gigs of memory. So in a typical deployment, there'll be at least some 100 blades to process the data. So these blades together will be processing around 12 petabytes of data.
Where most of your deployments taking place?
Actually, most of the deployments is in China, some deployments in the Middle East and India.
Is a copy of these slides up on the network?
Yeah, it's there, but unfortunately, I put it in the Keynote format. I'll translate to PDF and put it. I apologize for that. Okay. This one? Yeah. Okay.
So how are you inserting data into your cluster? Are you using an event cluster?
Okay, actually, this little telecom specific. So Huawei devices have something called probes, which mirror the packet and then analyze those packets and send out the metadata. So this data comes in TCP and UDP formats. Okay, so we have our own receivers which receive those data and write CSV files into HDFS. Yeah. Yeah, it's custom actually. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so thank you. Thanks a lot.